Welcome everyone, my name is Stella, and thank you for tuning in to Bibi and Yaya, where you will hear real-life stories every week which people have sent to us, detailing their life experiences, feelings, emotions, and reactions along the way. The people who write into us share their stories in hopes of connecting with others who may be able to give advice, comments, and opinions, such as yourself. You may have just the right solution to today's personal story. Here on Bibi and Yaya, we will also share our opinions with the hopes that we can help those who share their stories with us. If you have a story to tell, please send us an email by using the email provided in the description box below. And by hitting the thumbs up button, sharing, and subscribing to this channel, you can stay up to date with these very personal stories. This helps us to bring you new life stories and adventures every week, so you don't miss a thing. Also, you may hear a story here on Bibi and Yaya which resonates with your life. If so, you can read what other people have posted to help you with your own personal situation. These personal stories are real. People need advice, and you have the opportunity to help them with your own comments or solutions. The story we have for you today comes to us from Abby. Unfortunately and sadly, she is diagnosed with breast cancer. Even though she and her husband Jake have one young daughter, Annie, they want to have another child. However, Abby is advised against becoming pregnant again. So how do Abby and Jake grow their family? Well, it's time to find out. Here is Abby's story. Dear Stella, Jake and I knew we wanted to add to our family and love every moment with our beautiful little boy. But like many adoptive parents, we often heard upsetting or inappropriate questions. We adopted our perfect boy after my cancer diagnosis, and I'm sick of people's rude questions. So many of us are diagnosed with cancer at a young age these days. Some too young to have even begun contemplating having a family. Chemo and radiation can really damage your chances of becoming a natural birth parent. I've spoken with ladies who have been left infertile or without a womb or ovaries to create a little human being. It's just so unfair, and the treatments are barbaric in some ways. Before having Annie, I had miscarried with my first pregnancy at 10 weeks. 10 weeks probably sounds early to some people, but I had literally known from week 2 and was delirious with excitement. I tried to contain myself when it came to telling people and buying things and looking at new strollers. But then one day at work, sitting at my desk, I felt it. My teeny tiny human was gone. It's awful to go through this. And yet so many of us do without ever really talking about it. When Jake and I became pregnant again months later, the joy I'd had the first time around was definitely still there, but it was tinged with a big dark cloud of fear, just in case it had happened again. Thankfully, Annie was born perfectly healthy, in spite of my cancer diagnosis just 2 weeks earlier. Because we had to move pretty quickly to have my mastectomy and induce early labor with Annie, we weren't given an option to freeze any of my eggs. Plus, we wouldn't have qualified for financial help as we already had a child, our little Annie. To be honest, another baby wasn't important to me in the slightest at that moment in time. All I wanted was to live so that I could truly love the baby I already had. Plus, my labor had been horrific, and I remember telling Jake, I'm glad I can't have any more because I am never going through that again. Before long, though, I had that yearning for another baby. I missed Annie's kicks in my tummy and the peachy fuzz of a newborn baby. Trying again for another baby was scary, but I'll save that conversation for another day. Ultimately, though, Jake and I decided that we were too scared to get pregnant again, as my breast cancer had been fueled by my pregnancy hormones. I couldn't bear to go through 9 months of fear and then potentially my cancer returning, so we decided to do something we had always talked about: adopt. After a pretty long process, we were finally approved in November 2017. In January of 2018, while waiting to be matched with a little boy, my cancer came back, and this time I was told it was no longer curable. Obviously, I refused to accept that, and after a second opinion, more treatment, surgeries, diet changes, etc., I somehow got to no evidence of disease. And although I still have an incurable diagnosis, we're hoping that by staying on lifelong chemo, the disease won't come back. So we were given the flippin' go-ahead to adopt. We were finally matched with a baby boy who was literally our light at the end of the most terrifying tunnel. Something we had been told was no longer possible was possible. I still pinch myself now. Some of the things I'd really like to try and get across to anyone reading or listening to this is the language used around adopted children and adoptive parents. I spoke with a magazine recently, and some of the terminology used around adopted families is just not okay. Now, here are a few comments and opinions I've encountered. The first one is, "At least you don't have to go through labor." Some women would do anything to experience a natural birth, myself included. It's hard not to make light of it sometimes, I know. But instead, you could simply congratulate the parents as you would any other new parents. Here's the second one. "Send him back." This is unreal. Can you imagine your child hearing this and feeling a sense of not belonging or feeling as though he doesn't belong? If you feel the need to say something about their behavior, just go with whatever you would say to a child who isn't adopted. It's that easy. And the third is, "My sister's a weirdo. I think she must be adopted." Okay, so many of us are guilty of using this phrase, and it's clearly not meant as an insult. But think about how an adopted child overhearing this might feel. Am I a weirdo? Am I strange? Is that why I was put up for adoption? There are so many scenarios they could have going on in their little heads. So just try to keep it at, "My sister's a weirdo." The fourth one is, "His birth parents didn't deserve him anyway." We have heard this so many times, it doesn't make us mad. We just hate the idea of John feeling somehow ashamed of where he came from. When strangers are passing judgment on the people that brought him into this world, it can bring a sense of stigma with it. We never want him to feel like his birth parents were bad people, and that he's lucky to have us. We're incredibly lucky to have him. And finally, the fifth, "Can we see some photos of his birth parents?" Nope. They're very private to us. We know how easy it is to judge a book by its cover. People might try to see the similarities in his birth parents or think they look a certain way and therefore they judge. This is something we never want John to experience. So the photos are for our eyes only. Thank you very much. There are so many reasons children are taken into care, but what we learned in our training was that almost every single parent doesn't want to give up their child. And that is heartbreaking, no matter what the circumstances are. For a parent to have a child taken from them is horrific. We obviously have to look at the bigger picture and remind ourselves that it was in the best interest of the child. What a remarkable story from Abbey. We learn that because of her breast cancer, she is not really left with an option to have more children naturally. So, she and Jake decide to adopt their little son, John. What a loving family they are. Adopted children are no different than biological children. They are loved, wanted, and cared for by their doting parents. Yes, the adopted child is conceived by someone else, but this doesn't make the adopted child any less a member of the family with their other sibling or siblings. As soon as an adopted baby is part of the family, they are treated the same as the biological child. Many congratulations to Abby and Jake, who have two amazing children whom they love and cherish. And we wish Abby a complete recovery. Perhaps you may have the right solution or best advice for Abby. If so, we would like to hear from you. And you can read other people's comments, solutions, and opinions below relating to these real-life situations. They could very well mirror your own thoughts, or they could be quite different from yours. Remember that by liking and subscribing to Bibi and Yaya, you will hear me read letters every week which people send us about issues they are dealing with in their lives. These are real-life personal stories and people's everyday experiences. And don't forget, if you have a personal story or issue which you would like to share with us, please send us an email using the email provided in the description box below. We would be happy to hear from you and offer advice on how to deal or cope with your personal experience. Thank you for joining us today, and see you next time here on Bibi and Yaya.